Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. So, welcome back, everyone, and let's carry on with the relative word home. And of course, if you cannot hear me clearly or there is a sound or something, let me know, guys, okay? Or there is a sound or something, let me know, guys. Oh, glad to hear that. Thank you, Nana. Well, okay, let's carry on with the lesson, and I hope now everything will be okay. So, the woman to whom I spoke is my teacher. This one is very formal. Is it rarely used in speaking in everyday conversations? You can usually use this structure in formal emails, writings, okay? Whom and the preposition at the end. Okay. The woman, whom I spoke to is my teacher. So it's still formal because yesterday we talked about whom, that usually whom is used in formal situations. It's still formal because we have whom, right? But not that formal as when the preposition comes in front of whom, right? It's still formal, but just only formal, okay? It's just only formal, whereas this one is very formal, okay? Yeah, after this, we are going to talk about who. I'm just telling you that with whom we have two options, okay? You can put the preposition in front of whom or at the end of the relative clause, okay? When you put preposition in front of to, whom, it's very formal. When you put at the end, first comes whom and then to, it's just formal, okay? So all I want to say is that we have two options with whom, okay? You can put the preposition in front or at the end. Both are grammatically correct. However, first one is very formal, the second one is just formal. Okay, now let's move to who. Okay, who. The woman. With a who, we already know that we have only one option. Yes, Amel. So with whom, we have two options. The first one is very formal. The second one is just formal, okay? Now let's talk about whom. Who. Who. With who, we have only one option, right? First comes who, and at the end of the relative clause comes preposition. For example, the woman who I spoke to, right? Who I spoke to is my teacher. Okay? So we have here to plus whom, or whom and then to, or if we use who, we know that we have only one option, who, and then comes at the end preposition, okay? So this one is very formal. The second one is just formal, and with a who is less formal, okay? In everyday English, people avoid using whom. They usually use who, okay? Also because, guys, whom is only used for the object of the sentence, right? Only for the object of the sentence when someone receives the action, okay? Exactly. It's similar to whom, to the structure to whom, okay? What I was saying is, yeah, it's always, people usually avoid using whom because whom is used only for objects when someone receives the action, right? Whereas who can be used for both, for the subject when someone does the action, and for the object when someone receives the action, okay? Does anyone know what is the subject and object? What's the difference between subject and object? Yes, because sometimes when we don't know the grammar behind, for example, behind home, if we don't know the structure, we are always afraid of something, right? But as soon as we start understanding how it works, when we can use it, how we can use it, subject is the one who. Thank you, Amal. Subject, the one that did the action. Subject is the one who does it, and object is the one who receives it, right? Who we do it with or to. Excellent, exactly. So, whom is only used for objects, whereas who, if we use the correct structure, that is, if we need a preposition, we put it at the end, you can use it for both, for the subject and for the object. Okay? Everything's clear with whom and who. Could you repeat the use of whom I just entered? Well, I was saying that whom is used only for objects, okay? Whereas who can be used for both, for objects and subjects. Anyway, guys, because yesterday's live lesson had awful sound, I couldn't upload it on my YouTube. So if you want the live lesson on whom from the basics, we can do this. I can go on live next week and explain whom from the basics, okay? How we can use it, when we can use it, etc. Because I don't have the live lesson on YouTube about whom, okay? So just let me know and we can do it by the next week. Okay? So we know that for people, when it's an object, we can use whom or who. And we have these structures. Now let's go further. Here when the king of relative words comes in, that the king of the relative words. Why? Because we can use that for almost everything when it comes to the defining relative clause. Because, guys, it's very important that you remember that now we are only talking about defining relative clause, okay? Because people who were attending my classes from the beginning, they all know that the difference between defining and non-defining relative clause is if we use the defining relative clause structures or commas or words in defining relative clause or in non-defining relative clause, the story changes at all completely. Okay? You can, of course, go to my YouTube where you can find the video all about the difference between defining and non-defining relative clause. Or by the next week, we will be talk about the difference between them, and we are going to start learning non-defining relative clause, because this is defining relative clause when we provide essential information, okay? These are all essential information about person to identify. So that we can use even that instead of whom or who, okay? We can use that. And instead of saying the woman to whom, or the woman whom I spoke to, or the woman who I spoke to, we can say the woman that I spoke to is my teacher. Is my teacher. Okay? Now, as you can see, we have the same structure as with who or with whom when we informal or in less formal situations. The preposition comes at the end, right? The same goes with that. That comes, preposition comes at the end when we use that. Now, if you ask me which one of them are most natural when we speak or commonly used in everyday speaking, I would say that. When we talk with friends, with, in casual situations, people usually use that, not whom or who, that, okay? So all you need to do, just remember that prepositions come at the end. Only with whom we can put it in front, but it's very formal, okay? Now you have 4 options. You can use whom I spoke to, who I spoke to, or that I spoke to, because we know that can be used instead of almost all the relative words. We can use that instead of which, instead of whom, instead of who, instead of where, instead of when, instead of why, right? Hello, Yeben. Okay, everything's clear with that, because that is similar to who, okay? All you need to do is put the preposition, if it's needed, at the end, and that's it, okay? So that the king, that is, first comes that sentence and preposition at the end. I just realized why we use spoke. I didn't get it, Nana. Why we use spoke. What do you mean by that? I just realized why we use spoke, not speak, because the sentence is yeah, of course, because for example, you finished speaking with someone and then you are telling your friend about the woman, okay? Friend asked you, for example, who is that woman you were speaking to, right? And you can say, the woman that I spoke to is my teacher, not was, right? Of course, you can say was as well. She continues being your teacher, right? So you can say, the woman that I spoke to is my teacher. Okay? Okay, now at the end, if we go even further, it's a B2 level of English, okay? We can use the zero relative. The zero relative. People who were joining my previous live lessons, they already know what does it mean. It means we are often lazy when we speak. Sometimes we skip or remove some words from the sentence, right? But it's not like you can remove words whenever you like. We should follow some rules, right? We should follow some rules. So in some sentences, we can even remove these words at all. Remove these words at all. Okay? But we should follow some rules. That is, the zero relative means the zero relative pronoun. Means that sometimes who, that, or whom, they are ghosting the sentence. We can skip them. Okay? And instead of saying the woman that I spoke to, or the woman whom I spoke to, or the woman to whom I spoke is my teacher, we can say the woman I spoke to is my teacher. The woman that I spoke, well, is it Katie? We need a preposition because in normal sentences, when we use the verb speak or spoke, do we need a preposition? We use prepositions, right? We say, I spoke to my friend, or I spoke to my mom. We use to or with, right? With the verb spoke, we need preposition. So the structure is the woman that I spoke to is my teacher. So when a verb needs a preposition, we should add preposition. Okay? Exactly, Amal. It's the most natural way, right? It's the most natural way. Usually native speakers use the zero relative pronoun in everyday situations, in casual situations. They use the zero relative pronoun when you can skip that, whom or who at all. Okay? However, as you can see, the preposition is still here, okay, at the end. So again, all you need to do is just remember that preposition comes at the end, whether you use that, who, even whom, right? That preposition comes at the end. However, with whom we have two options. Okay? Now let's do an exercise. So to make sure you understood everything I've explained so far. Okay? So, with that, whom, or zero relative, or zero pronoun, preposition, preposition, preposition. Okay? Exactly, Mel. But do you remember the zero relative, right? Because we cannot always use it, right? We can use it when the very next word is a pronoun or a name, but when there is a verb, we should change the structure and add ing, right? There are 3 parts on the zero relative. On the zero relative on my YouTube. Okay, and when we have whom, we have 2 options. We can put preposition in front, preposition and whom, or whom and preposition, okay? Yeah, of course. So, for example, when we want to use the zero relative, all we need to do is just look at the very next word after the relative word. These are relative words, right? That, who, and which. If we, after relative word, have he, or you, or she, or John, or Tom, someone, or someone, we can skip these words and say, the phone he bought is expensive, or the man you met yesterday is my colleague, or the dog John adopted is very friendly. Okay? So with pronouns or names, it's very easy. All you need to do is just remove these words and you are already using the zero relative. Okay? If you have a pronoun like he, she, they, we, I, you can remove these words. Okay? Now, what if there is a verb and not a pronoun or a name? In this situation, we should add ing. I met a girl who speaks 5 languages becomes I met a girl speaking 5 languages. Or the man who lives in that house is famous actor. We can say the man living in that house is a famous actor. Okay? We add ing. So when we have a pronoun, nothing changes. All we need to do is remove this word, relative word. Whereas when there is a verb, we should add ing to the verb. Okay? And of course, there are some rules about passive voices because when a verb is a passive voice, we should change the structure. There is a full live lesson all about the zero relative, when we can and when we cannot use the zero relative. Okay? Now let's do an exercise about whom. The 3-step native transformation instructions. Transform these sentences from formal to the most natural zero relative form. Okay? Let's see. For example, the girl to whom I spoke is beautiful. The girl who I spoke to is beautiful. The girl I spoke to is beautiful. However, feel free to provide examples with that or with whom when whom has preposition here. More examples, better, okay? Sentence number 1. The doctor with whom I talked was very professional. Okay. The doctor I talked with was very professional. Thank you, Mel. Nana Casual, the doctor who I talked with was very professional. Excellent. So both of them are correct, guys. Both of them are perfectly correct, grammatically correct. It's up to you. It's optional. If you like using who, you can use it, or that, you can use it, or the zero relative, you can use it, okay? Natural, the doctor I talked with was very professional. And Mindel, the doctor who I talked to was very professional. Amel, the doctor that I talked with was very professional. Very well done. And now you have four or five options. Okay? It's up to you. If you like that, the king of relative words, you can use that or the zero relative. And of course, it depends on the situations as well. Now you're ready how to use whom in formal speech or in emails or with friends or in casual situations, right? So first comes the doctor. The doctor, who or that, both are correct. I talked with was very professional. And the most natural, the doctor I talked with was very professional, right? Excellent, guys. Now, number 2. The boy for whom I opened the door said thank you. Okay, the boy for whom I opened the door. Okay, good. And the boy I opened the door for said thank you. But the most natural, right? Now the boy who I opened the door for said thank you. Or the boy I opened the door for said thank you. Excellent. Very well done. The boy who or that, right? I opened the door for, or the boy I opened that door for. Okay, very well done. Mindel, the boy who I opened the door for said thank you. Very well done. Let's move on. Number 3, the client to whom I gave the folder is waiting. The client to whom I gave the folder is waiting. Amal, the client I have the folder to is waiting. The client who I gave the folder to is waiting. Excellent. The client who I gave the folder to. Folder 2 is waiting, or the client I gave the folder to. Natural, the client I gave the folder to is waiting. Excellent. Number 4, the person about whom you are thinking is my brother. The person about whom you are thinking is my brother. Very well done. The person who you are thinking about is my brother, or the person you are thinking about is my brother, right? The person who or that, right? Who or that you are thinking about. Or natural, the person you are thinking about. Thinking about. Okay, number 5. The singer to whom we listened was amazing. The singer to whom we listened was amazing. The singer who we listened to was amazing. Or is amazing. It depends on the context, right? Both are correct. The singer we listened to is amazing. The singer who or that, right? We listen to was amazing, or the singer we listened to was amazing. And the last one is the woman from whom I bought the flowers is my neighbor. The woman from whom I bought the flowers is my neighbor. The woman I bought the flowers from is my neighbor. The most natural, right? The woman who I bought the flowers from is my neighbor. The woman I bought the flowers from is my neighbor. Very well done. The woman who or that, right? I bought the flowers from. Or the woman I bought the flowers from. Okay? The woman I bought the flowers from is my neighbor. Excellent. Okay, everything's clear for everybody about whom. Not only whom, right? About who, about whom, about that, or the zero relative pronoun. Because now we are moving on to the relative word which. Okay? And yeah, guys, just a quick reminder about the Telegram channel. Yeah, of course, it's really good that you understood everything about home. But when it comes to the languages, we often forget some of the structures and rules if we don't practice them, right? Yeah, today you can use all the structures, but if you don't practice it every day or at least once a week, you will forget these structures. Okay? So, on my Telegram channel, I'll be uploading some of the exercises from the book so you can practice regularly, and some of the useful phrasal verbs, idioms, grammar tips, explanations and examples, dialogues about the relative clauses, so you can practice everything regularly and chat with other English learners. Okay? You will be able to learn something new every day and connect with other learners. And of course, if you'd like to join, just send me a direct message on TikTok with the word Telegram. Okay? Telegram. So, and as soon as everything is set up, next week, starting from the next week, I'll send you the link personally. So all you need to do is just send me a word Telegram. Telegram. Okay? I'm going to see how to build a question with them as well. I wanted today to explain which as well. And on Monday, we can practice both which and whom together. Okay? And of course, we are going to build some sentences or questions or negatives as well. Okay? Anyway, guys, thank you for the likes, for the shares, for the gifts. I really appreciate it. That means a lot to me. No. At the weekends, I don't go on live. I'll come back on Monday at the same time. Okay? No worries. Okay, just 2 minutes break, guys. Let me just go and get some water and be back. Be back in 2 minutes. And let's learn relative word which. Okay? Thank you very much for the gifts, Nana. Okay, bear with, guys. I'll be back in no time. Okay, I'm back. Now, we are going to talk about which, right? The relative pronoun which. Now, let's get to the A2 level. At A2 level, we learn the relative word which, like it can be used for only animals and things, right? We cannot use it for people. Okay? When it comes to the relative clauses, guys, we cannot use which for people. Okay? Only for animals and things. Okay? And as you already know, we can use, instead of which, we can use that in defining relative clause. So again, which only for animals and things, okay? For example, the phone which I bought yesterday is broken. Or the dog that barked all night kept me awake. Okay? That's how we start learning relative clauses. At the beginning, we learn which, and we learn that which can be used for things and animals. And again, we can use in everyday situations, in casual speaking, we can use that as well. Now, in American English, people in defining relative clause use that, only that. However, both of them are grammatically correct. It's optional, it's up to you. You can use which or that. Both of them are correct. You can say, the phone which I bought yesterday is broken, or you can say, the phone that I bought yesterday is broken. Both of them are grammatically correct. It's up to you, it's optional, okay? Note that in relative clauses, we don't use what. It's another topic, it's another story, okay? We don't use what. We say for things and animals, the movie that I watched and not the movie what I watched, or the dog which barked and not the dog what barked, okay? So for things and animals, which or that, it's up to you. Now, if we move further to the B1 or B2 or C1 level, did you know that we can also use which with the places, time, and even reasons? So, exactly, Nana. We use that. But still, both of them are correct. Both of them are grammatically correct. Okay? So, if we move further to B1 or B2 or C1 level, which can be used for places, time, or reason, okay? Or reason. Okay? Now, we know that in everyday situations, in casual speaking, we use where for places, when for time, and why for reasons. Okay? where can replace the place and preposition in a sentence. Okay? When we use where, we don't use preposition. Okay? For example, this is the park where I play. Where I play every day. Every day. Here, where replaces the park. I play in the park or at the park, right? But when we have where, we don't need preposition anymore. We use when for time. For example, the day when we met. The day when we met. Here, when replaces the preposition on that day. Okay? Replaces preposition and time. Or the reason why. This is the reason why he left. Why he left. For that reason. Okay? So, why for reason, when for time, and where for places. Both of them, all of them are correct, grammatically correct, especially in everyday situations. They are the most natural ways of describing time, place, or reason. Okay? Now, in formal English, in formal writing, or in emails, we can use which instead of where, when, and why. Where is it? Now, the same goes with which as we did, with whom. Because what happens with whom when we want to sound very formal? What happens with whom or who when we want to sound very formal, when it comes to people? We put the preposition in front of whom, right? To sound very formal. Thank you, Nana. We put preposition right in front of whom. The same goes with which. Usually in everyday situations or in casual speaking, we use where, when, or and why. When we talk about place, time, or reason. But if we want to sound formal, we use which, but we should put the preposition in front of which. Okay? For example, when we use where, as I said before, where is a relative adverb. Okay, it's a relative adverb. This adverb, this word, when it comes to the relative clauses, it replaces place and preposition. So when we use where, we don't need preposition, okay? We don't need preposition anymore. So where equals place and preposition. If we use another relative word, or maybe that, or the zero relative, or which, then we need preposition, okay? So instead of saying this is the park where I play every day, here we don't need in anymore, or at, or whatever preposition it is. We don't say this is the park where I play in. It's incorrect. If you build a relative clause and you are using where, you don't need preposition, okay? This is the park where I play every day, because where already means in this park. If you add in, it will be like in normal sentences, if you would say, I play in the park. If you use two prepositions in a normal sentence, it sounds like that, okay? I play in the park. We don't use two prepositions, right? So again, when you use where, you don't need preposition, okay? But when you want to replace, instead of where, use another relative word, then you need preposition. This is the park in which I play every day, okay? This is the park in which I play every day, okay? Now with when. The day when we met, the day when we first met, changed my life, for example. Changed my life, okay? Here, when replaces preposition on that day. Exactly, Emil, it's formal. If you are writing an email or formal letter, or you are speaking to someone and you want to sound more formal, you should use which, okay? But remember that prepositions, you should use preposition in front, okay? Commonly used prepositions with places are usually in, on, or at, right? Okay, So when. Here, when replaces time and preposition. Again, in case we use preposition with yes. What do I mean by that? I don't get it. In case we use preposition with. You mean as we did with whom, right? When first comes which, then sentence, and at the end preposition, or right after saying this is the work which in. No, we cannot put preposition right next to the which. As we did with whom, you have two options. You can put in here very formal, or just formal. You can put it at the end of the relative clause, right? Yeah. Okay, so here when equals time and preposition. And the same goes with when. When we use which instead of when, we put preposition in front, or as Mel said, at the end of the sentence, right? And say the day on which, right? Exact day on which we first met. I don't like this. The day on which we first met changed my life, or we can say the day which we first met on. Okay? Okay, so this one is very formal, right? This is just formal. When is natural. That's how people speak in everyday situations. Okay? They use when. Why? Because when helps you to avoid preposition, avoid time. The day when we first met, instead of the day on which we first met, right? Or this is the park where I play every day, and not this is the park in which I play every day. Driving school, do you have fixed time to come online? I do. I come on live every day, not the weekend, during the week, from Monday to Friday at 10:30 in the morning. Very formal is when we use which and use preposition in front. It's very formal, okay? We use this structure in formal writings, in emails, in books. This one is just formal, okay? When we use first which and then we use preposition. Natural way is when or where, okay? So usually people with friends or in everyday situations with the places people use for places where, time, when, and reason. For reason, what should I use? You're very welcome. Okay, why? Reasons. These are commonly used, okay? These relative words. What's the name of the book? The name of the book is, let's define it. It's all about relative clauses. You can find the book in my profile, okay? Okay, shout the question mark, why? Well, when it comes to the relative clauses, guys, these words are not questions. We are not asking, okay? We are not asking. When it comes to the relative clause, they work as, these are relative adverbs, whereas which, whom, who, whose are relative pronouns. They mean the same as which, it, like it is a dog, it is a cat, whom, him, her, okay, or who, she, he. They mean the same. Okay, they mean, or whose, her, his, possession, right? So when it comes to the relative clauses, just forget about questions, okay? With the relative clauses, these words work like normal pronouns or adverbs, okay? That's why they function differently, okay? Is there an example for why except of course? Where is why? For example, the reason for which I called. Usually when we use why, we use this word, the reason for which I called, or the reason he left earlier is that he was angry or something, but we start the sentence with the reason why he left, or the reason he called me, or the reason he doesn't love you. When we use these words as a relative word, we usually start the sentence with the reason, but if we use which for reasons, we need preposition for, right? For which I called, okay? Now, let me provide some examples. Okay? With where, for example. Oh, thank you, Ibrahim. Exactly, the reason why he walked out. Very well done. For example, where the bank in which I work provides excellent customer service. The bank in which I work provides excellent customer service. Now I want you, instead of in which, use where to sound more natural. Can someone rephrase this sentence and instead of in which, use where? More or less, we understood the structure, right? Which works exactly the same as whom when it comes to the structure, right? Which we can use for places, time, reasons, animals, things, but not for people, whereas whom or who can be used for people. Okay? Can someone use where in this sentence? Excellent, Nana. Very well done. I'm glad you didn't use preposition. The bank where I work provides excellent customer service. Very well done. That sounds very natural when we use where instead of which, and we remove preposition. Okay? Okay, now I'm going to provide example with where, and I want you to sound formal. Okay? Again, with where. The hotel at which, I'm sorry, I told you the preposition. The station where we arrived was crowded. Now, can someone use which instead of where to sound more formal? Okay, the station in which we arrived is crowded. Okay. Yeah, the structure is correct. However, we usually use at for the station, right? The preposition at. So it's not like you should use always in, right? It depends on the context. Of course, if you say in the station, you mean inside the building, right? Inside of the building. It depends on the context, but Usually with the station, we use at, right? Other than that, the structure is perfect. Thank you, Nana, Emil. Very well done, Xiao Xiao. The station at which we arrived was crowded, right? So usually when we talk about the location, we use at, right? But when we want to emphasize that we arrived inside something, then we use in. Okay, we have 10 more minutes, so okay. I forgot when is the right time to use. Well, yeah, when you talk about something, well, for example, you can say at the supermarkets when you talk about the location, right? But when you want to emphasize that you're inside the supermarket, then you can say in. Whereas on always when talking about on the surface of something, right? Okay, let's do this exercise. This is the house. Informal writing, we often replace where, when, why with preposition plus which. Rewrite the sentences below using the formal structure from the book. For example, this is the house where I live. This is the house in which I live. Or I will never forget the day when we met. I will never forget the day on which we met. Or the reason why I called you is a secret. The reason for which I called you is a secret. Okay? Number one, the city where she was born is very beautiful. Can someone use excellent ML? So, for example, with cities, we always use in. Okay? I feel like native speakers don't use that. You mean that relative word that? Or what do you mean? In which? If you mean preposition plus which, in everyday situations, they don't use this structure. However, they use it in formal writing or speaking. Exactly, the city in which, right? She was born. She was born. Excellent. Number two. Oh, thank you. Exactly. usually we don't use this structure in everyday situations, right? But if someone needs to, I don't know, write a formal email or a book, for example. Okay, guys, let's do two more examples and I'm gonna head off. Tell me for which reason you are late. Very well done. Summer, what about Summer? Tell me for which reason. For which reason, right? For which reason Summer is the season? Summer is the season which okay, summer in which exactly, and one more. The hotel at which we stayed. Exactly. The hotel. The hotel at which, right? At which we stayed. Okay, guys. Unfortunately, I got to go, and yes, hopefully today I'll upload this live lesson on my YouTube. So, yeah. Thank you guys for joining, for being here with me. Thank you for likes, shares, follows. It's been lovely being here with you. So when it comes to the Telegram channel, you can send me a direct message so from the next week I'll send you Telegram link personally. YouTube channel, please. You can go to my TikTok profile where you can find my YouTube, everything about my live lessons, about me, etc. And see you on Monday at the same time, right? At 10:30 a.m. Okay? See you on Monday, guys. Have a wonderful, interesting weekend. We should practice which and whom. Yes, Amal, you should just send me a message on TikTok with the word Telegram. Okay? So I remember you, and as soon as everything's set up, I'll send you the link personally. Okay? Okay, guys. Have a nice weekend and see you on Monday at 10:30. Take care. Bye, Amal. You're very welcome. Bye, on. Is it Oivel? Bye, Yebe. Thank you guys being here with me. Take care.